What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Cat Dad Show. Today, we are going to be diving into the mystical nature of cats and their connection with the realms after death. We're also going to explore more about the way cats think, how we can communicate with our cats, and ultimately how cat owners can build a more harmonious and spiritually connected relationship with their cats. To chat about all of this today, my special guest is Ute Luppertz, the founder of Pets Points of View. She's a holistic healing coach for animals, a senior pet specialist, a pet death doula, and an animal communicator, and loves helping people deepen their connection with their pets. Ute, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun and so exciting that we get to talk.
I'm super excited for this because a lot of what you know, I don't know. So I'm going to be learning with the audience. And I want to just kick things off by could you tell us like what pets you currently have?
Yes. So currently I'm down to three.
Sure.
I have two old dogs, my little Chihuahua Pablo, who is a super senior, and then Gunnar, who is a Tibetan Spaniel. He's also a senior. And then I have a mystical, magical cat, my cat Esme. She is 6 years old and she is a Maine Coon magic mix. That's what I call her.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And just for those who don't know me, I'm not a fan of just having one cat. It just evolved after my other cat sent Esme along, and Esme grew up with Pablo, who is her father, her
Okay.
dog's father. Okay. So, yeah. So sometimes thinks of herself she's a dog, and Pablo certainly acts like a cat. I can say that.
I love it. Uta, you describe yourself as a cat worshiper. What is it about cats that you find so mystical?
That's a very profound question, actually. So I feel that we cannot manipulate cats like we can manipulate dogs and horses or other mammals, right? And I call myself a cat worshiper because I really serve my cats the way they need to be served. They have certain preferences, like about food, about sleep, about play, and I found that they actually see things that are sometimes invisible to us, and
Mhm.
I don't know what that is. I mean, sometimes when I do animal communication sessions, I know what it is, but there is just something where I say, "Dogs are our friends, and we serve our cats."
Mm.
Right? So for me, there is just something there is a reason they were worshipped in ancient Egypt, and my cats remind me of the fact very often, and I have actually when we get further into our conversation, I have some interesting examples. So this is not just cute that I say that. I really feel a lot of cats, there is a cat, they're aware of their divine nature much more so than many other mammals. That's my experience when I do end of life work. That's my experience as an animal communicator also. And some cats don't, but many do. And when we can treat them with respect and reverence, they are totally amazing, you know? And they are not as willing to fulfill my needs if I'm not anchored in myself, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things I love about cats. They're no pushovers, if you will.
Right. And you're right. It's not just funny memes that cats, as we'll dive in and learn more,
Yeah.
there's actually good meaning from this. You talk a lot about the connection between cats and the afterlife. Can you share some insights or experiences that highlight this connection?
I work with a lot of animals who are getting closer to the end of life, and cats and dogs are my primary clients, if you will. And what I have seen with is say with my cats also is they often preview what it's like to be out of body. We know cats sleep a lot, not just old cats, right? And I think they're not just sleeping. I think some go into a trance. Some do mystical journeys, and a lot of them really preview what it is like when they're not in their body anymore.
Mhm.
And it is like, a, it's almost like a ballerina. There is no effort. And when I say all of these things, whoever listens to this, I'm not denying the fact that there is illness. I'm also not denying the fact that things hurt in the body. So they're not just, they also have bodies that fail, that hurt, that get painful, that get weak. But I have seen some amazing grace with cats that I find awe inspiring, and where I feel I can learn a lot about what it means to surrender to the impending release of the body. And I think a lot of cats have nailed this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so these are cats that are close to the end of their life, and you're saying that they can get a preview of what the
Yeah.
afterlife will be like.
Yeah. That's my experience.
Okay,
That's my experience.
okay,
Yeah.
that's fascinating. I know one of your, I guess I'm just gonna say job title, for lack of a better phrase,
Yeah.
pet death doula. I actually looked this up before our chat here because I didn't know what a pet death doula,
Yeah.
was. Can you kinda describe what your role is as a pet death.
Yeah. So that's a relatively new term. I might be one of the first people who actually said or coined themselves as that. So as I mentioned before, I do a lot of end of life support. When I am doing doula work, I am walking alongside my clients, and these are the humans that are worried and sad and they're grieving. And doula work can be, and it doesn't have to be in person, by the way. I work with people all over.
Okay,
With doula work, I check in with the animal often, frequently, depending on what people ask of me and what the need is for support. And I check along the way, how far out are you looking? How close are you getting to release? How close are you getting to ask a person for assistance, which is commonly known as euthanasia? So, and with some animals, I do energy work. When there's a moment that it gets like tight or the family gets really tense, I do a preview with them, right? So it's a little bit of shamanic work. I do a preview with them. And the doula work is really that we look at these last moments, and they can be a few days, they can be a few hours, where I'm just there with them and go like, this is the step, take the next step, take the next step, and then you're free.
mm,
Yeah. So it is a very close and intimate journey that I take with the animals and also with the human family because, our animals are so attuned to our energy and to our emotions.
yeah,
And for a lot of humans, it can be very, very supportive. And not everybody needs this. This is just
mhm,
something, that I instinctively do with my own animals. And this isn't just hovering, this is like, okay, can I tune into where you are journeying? And then I do it with my animal clients too. And sometimes I do some remote work, like remote Reiki or something like that,
okay,
to really dial it in and feel, so the separation of the spirit, soul, whatever people want to call it, happens way before they stop breathing,
mm,
you know?
mm,
When we have a natural progression, it's not happening when they're run over by a car,
right,
So they might have a premonition that, but when we have a sudden occurrence, that doesn't happen. But with like predictable illness outcomes as we know them now, like kidney failure or heart disease or cancer, I see that a lot. And then I can do doula work if it is requested.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating because so I lost one of my cats last year. She was 20, she had illness, she had various ailments. And then when I finally brought her into the vet, to get checked out. We were making pretty frequent trips to the vet
Yeah.
towards the last few months. When I
Yeah.
brought her into the vet, I didn't realize on that day that that was gonna be, the day I said goodbye.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just kinda curious if I had known you last year and Mia was still around
Mhm.
and I wanted to have you help in that transition, what would that have even looked like if I didn't know, like, exactly how much time she had left?
Yeah. So let me say I don't have a crystal ball
Mhm.
where I look at time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what that would have looked like, I would have tuned into Mia. I might have given you some impressions of where I feel stress in her body. I would have given you some information about what she is feeling and what she is thinking, and potentially about wishes that she has. You know, some animals have very particular requests from their people. They might have assignments. Some people, like yourself, they find me after the animal has crossed over, and we can still do that work.
Mm.
You know, I do also a lot of work with animals that are already in the other sphere, and it's actually like calling, a certain psychic hotline, if you will, and we can retrieve information. They can share information with us about a lot of things, and especially before death, also after crossing over, they know us so well. They often know us better than our human partners or our human family knows us. And it never ceases to amaze me what I learn about the person from the animal. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we are all programmed to say, oh, we got to be strong. We shouldn't, we shouldn't show emotions. I mean, like the sad emotions, and say, it's okay. It's okay. And then I say, is it? Is it really okay? They know when we are grieving. They know when we are sad. That doesn't mean we throw it on them. It doesn't mean they become our social worker to rescue us from grief, but they know how we feel,
Yeah.
you know? And I had cry sessions with some of my cats because I just shared with them it's like my aching love for them.
Mm.
They were like, they were sharing with me that I will be okay, and I'm like, "I hope so, and I'm here, and I am okay," and I'm absolutely grateful about the learning that I experienced and what they showed me, and, they're with me forever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta imagine that's a source of comfort. I was just thinking from the pet owner point of view,
Mhm.
when I've had 2 cats pass away, and I mean, the grief just hit me
Yeah,
so hard, just
yeah.
for a long time, and I can imagine having somebody like you there to help with that transition could be a source of comfort for the pet owner, but what have you seen in your experience? How has the pet owner benefited from just
Mhm.
you kind of helping through that transition?
The main thing is you are not alone.
Mm,
I understand as best I can, and I am with you and I walk alongside you. And a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm so sorry," or "It's not fair." There are all these things that people say to you, right? The magnitude of the relationship that you have with your animals, not many people understand it.
mm,
We have pets and they're cute and we grieve and whatever we do, but to really understand, there is a teaching in that for us about our own emotional hotspots, because death is something you can't reverse it. You can't undo it. So, and what I have found is that people who work with me, they are accepting of their emotions,
mm,
but it is much less tense, much less stressful. And also, there can be in the thick of this, there can be beauty.
Mhm.
They can be gratitude. It's an initiation.
Mm.
And when you have someone who really understands what you're going through, who has been through the ringer, and I had many animals pass in my home, both dogs and cats. And when you have someone who is not your family member, but who really holds that space, you don't you don't fall into the black hole necessarily. And that doesn't mean everybody falls into a black hole, but it's a lonely journey. Even when people say, "Oh, Scott, I'm so sorry this happened," because there is the buildup, and there
Mm.
is an illness, or there is a sudden diagnosis, and the real grayness, as I call it, the gray zone, where other people go on with their life, happens afterwards.
Mhm.
Yeah? When
Yes.
all like, you're used to all of these things when you wake up in the morning, when you feed them, when they run around, when you play with a wand with them, or whatever you do. And I often say, after anybody actually crosses over, the molecules of the universe realign, right? And when this is an immediate situation, it is so powerful. It is so deep. And most people want to fix that for you. They want to make you feel better. And the intention is noble. I don't want to make anybody feel better. I want you to feel what you feel and honor the sacredness of your love and your grief. I'm not trying to sell a Disney movie here to anybody, right? So when we can be present with this achingly deep love, it's a very different experience. And for those who hear this, it takes a lot of courage not to go into coping behavior. And we all do it. I do it. Everybody does it. And coping behavior is that you are getting mad, that you think the vet did something wrong, or they should have lived longer, or this. There are all kinds of things that I hear from people. Guilt is a big one.
Mhm.
It's a huge one for people. And I don't discount any of that. But for me, it's about how can we get into presence?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do we allow ourselves to feel the aftermath of this, how it changes us, and how it makes us more open, and how we learn deeper things about ourselves in the process? Yeah? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense, and just thinking from my experience, after Mia passed away, I felt so alone because I live alone, and she was my companion, and her brother had already passed away a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I just remember, actually, on the last episode of the Cat Dad show, I talked about how lonely I felt and how I was scared to come home and sleep at night. So I crashed on a friend's sofa for 3.5 months. I didn't want to be alone. So I
Yeah.
know without a doubt, having somebody like you by my side to go through this experience, which has been the hardest experience of my life to date, would have been very beneficial to me.
Yeah.
So can definitely see like what a beautiful thing that you do to help pet owners and their pets transition. So that's really amazing. As your role as a pet death doula, how do you see cats handling the transition between life and death? And is there something unique about cats as they approach this transition that maybe you don't see in other animals?
Um, I don't see it as completely unique. I've seen some very enlightened dogs cross over.
Yeah.
I've worked with donkeys and horses. So I think one of the differences might be I call cats are natural meditators.
Mhm.
So, you know, I I I've seen cats just go into a more illuminated sphere. For example, my one of my soul cats, my cat Moopy, she was very, very ill. She died of kidney failure, and she didn't really look good at the end of of her life,
Yeah.
right? And I had 3 cats who were all terminal at the same time. So
Oh
I have
my.
an entire hospice
Mm,
nurse station here in my house. They're all 3 of them, and they crossed over in the time span of 5 months. And Moopy was like, I had 2 boy cats, Bodie and Marlowe, and Moopy was like the queen in the house, and she was like she held out the longest, and I had a sense who would be now the first one to go, and then I thought maybe her companion Marlo holds out the longest, but it was Moopy. And I have a photo of this, and I have it framed in my house. Moopy on the last day of her life, I have a yard and I live in Portland, Oregon. So on the east side of Portland, we have the mountains, and on the west side, we have the ocean. And Moopy was really, really weak, right?
mm,
And on the last day of her life, she sat in my backyard like a statue. I mean, I couldn't believe it. She sat there all day long. My vet came in the evening to my house to help her cross over, and she sat motionless facing east, was she did not pay attention to my dogs. My dogs were bouncing around. I kept checking on her, and Muppy was just like a goddess facing east. Right. And then when my vet came in the evening, she was like, okay, there's her. All right. And I said to my vet, we probably want to sedate her in the backyard because, as you probably know, prior to euthanasia, a vet injects a sedative or a
mhm,
cocktail of pain medication and a sedative. And so we went into the yard, excuse me. And so just her entire demeanor, and I worked with another cat, one of my favorite cats in London, who was super ill. He had intestinal lymphoma. And he didn't sit like a statue, but he was also in this absolutely serene space while everybody else was like scrambling around him. He worked with an oncology team. This person was absolutely amazing with him, but he was also like, okay, I could die on my own, but if you must, you can do what you need to do to feel better. Right. And there was just this energy around him where he totally surrendered, and he also didn't look that good at the end of his life,
mm,
and he was weak. And there was the progression that we see in the physical body when a cancer takes over, or in Whoopi's case, when the kidneys just are totally shot, right? But there was just this where she was just sitting there all day, and she didn't pay attention to me, didn't pay attention to the dogs. The dogs somehow walked in a huge radius around her, and my dogs, they like to sniff and they like to come closer. They didn't do any of that. So she very much had this thing around her, this bubble where she was just facing east all day long. And I took a picture of that, and it is just one of the most incredible things that I experienced with one of my own cats,
mm,
right? And then, my cat Marlowe, Moopy's mate, or at times they had a child because she sometimes treated him like her unruly son. And he was much, much bigger than her, but, very different disposition. And Marlowe, for his entire life, was a very, very shy cat, the most gorgeous cat in Portland, I always say. But nobody knew it because he wouldn't show himself to people, or, he had to visit Miles for 10 years and then he maybe made an appearance, you know? And I'm like, okay, dude, you do you. It's fine. It's fine. And he also was in this absolutely serene space leading up to his death. And he had cancer,
mm,
right? And only the last and I had some remedies that I used here to make it a little bit more easy for them. And they were like, "Okay, really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I need you to take some remedies so that I feel good about myself." And they were like, "Okay, yeah, all right, fine, fine." And I'm like, I was gentle, but there were some things that I had to do because I'm human
Yeah.
and I cannot just not do anything. But only the last night of his life, there was like a slow motion restlessness. He was like trying to find a different spot. And I thought, oh, you're getting closer. And then the next morning, he woke me up, he meowed, and I had to actually leave to go to an appointment. And it was a short one. And I had a moment of, should I not go?
Mm,
I thought, "No, no, no. This is okay." And he chose his favorite corner in my bedroom, and when I was getting ready to leave, I checked on him, and I just had this feeling, "Don't touch," "Don't touch." And I think I was gone for an hour, you
mm,
know, give or take an hour and a half, and I had a feeling things might be different when I come back home, and I just felt him also have this kind of bubble around him, and it
mhm,
wasn't anything that I saw as a bubble. I just describe it as a bubble. And and I had a feeling. And when I came home, he had stopped breathing.
mm, yeah.
And my vet was supposed to come to my house that day, and she did come in the evening because we knew each other. And I said, "Would you come and we can honor him," right? And Moopy sat vigil next to his body the entire day. So there was just something absolutely incredible about this. And she just sat vigil all day long. And then we got him out in the evening, and I just had a very clear sense that I wasn't supposed to touch the sacred site where
Mm,
his body was, for the day. And also the dogs didn't go in, That was just, there was this thing. And these are just examples that are close to my heart because it
right.
happened in my home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Beautiful story. Does the bond between a pet owner and the animal continue into the afterlife? And if so, how do we nurture that bond?
100%.
Mm,
100%. So, how do we nurture that? I think that is very, very personal to each of us. I always say, keep talking to them, they can hear you.
mm,
And do I have proof of that? No. Do I have a sensory experience of that in my own life? Yes, I do. And we all do different things. You might journal. You might, I always, I have an entire wall here with framed photos of everybody who ever lived and died here. And it's not creepy. I
mm,
call it the house elves. Yes. So, and I, I have little areas. I have an entire area here behind me, actually, behind the Soji screen, where I have collars and crystals and photos, and I have some ashes of one of my animals. And then you can ask questions. Some people think they have to get rid of the ashes or they have to get rid of things that are important to them, like a collar or a favorite cat toy or what have you. And I say you don't have to broadcast it to everybody, but see, how do you want to remember them as they were? And then what could be their legacy?
mm,
Okay. So, an example, and it is very, very personal. And you can still do that with Mia. So, time is just a concept that we
right.
have, right? You can still say, Mia, I created the Cat Dad show. And
Mhm,
maybe you did it in her honor. I don't know.
mhm,
It, you know, And um would you like me to share something? Would you like me to do something? And maybe this podcast is um a tribute to how your life was altered forever because of Mia and
Yeah.
then Canyon,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, my cats brought me a project, which is my cat Esme, and Esme is actually not a project, but I thought, okay, when they were all, getting ready one by one, I thought, okay, my friends wanted to hook me up with rescue cats because I'm very active in the rescue community, and I said, no, I'm grieving. I need space. And my dogs also need to adjust to not having cats around. And then I had this idea that I will get an old, docile, quiet man cat who might have languished at a shelter. And, and people had all of these nice suggestions. There's a cat who needs a home here and there. And I'm like, no, no, no. Let me see. And I had this vision or idea of what I wanted to do. And then one of my dear rescue buddies sends me a Facebook message and says, "Oh, I have a kitten." And I'm like, "No, I'm not doing a kitten, and kittens
Right.
are a companion." And then she goes like, "But she's very special." And I'm like, "La la 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 la." And I'm like, "No." And I do kitten adoption consulting and say, "Kittens need another kitten." Won't ever do it. And then she sends me this photo and I'm like, "Ah, ah." And
That did it.
I mean, it sounds like really corny. And I knew her name was Esme before I ever met her. And she wasn't even local. I had to drive for an hour to another town. And there was just something about Esme where I just knew it. And I thought, I break all of my rules. Cat, sight unseen. It's a kitten. I mean, might need to get her a companion, which I would have done for her, because it's not about me. It's about what does she need. And then she was sick when I met her because true to form, I get a sick cat. And she wasn't sick for very long. But Esme came and conquered with her own special magic and latched onto one of my dogs, who became her father, my Chihuahua Pablo. Was it something that I thought would happen? No. Did I plan for this? No. Did I have a gut feeling or an intuition that
Mm.
I have to ditch my preconceived notions? Yes. And that's what I did.
Yeah. I love that. I think you're right. Like, I am putting on the Cat Dad show to honor Mia and my other cat that passed away, Nomar.
No.
You mentioned writing journal letters. For a long time, I wrote letters to Nomar. Once he passed away, 5 years ago tomorrow. So my friend had gotten me this journal with Nomar on it.
Oh, cute.
And yeah, so and all his nicknames, Nomi, Gnomes, Nomaroni. And for the first year or two, I wrote a lot of letters. He used to play with Hershey Kisses, just bat it back and forth almost like a soccer ball, and I still have to this day a dish filled with Hershey Kisses in my drawer. I was like, "Hey, that just makes me feel a little bit more connected."
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
putting together a tribute hike in honor of, Nomar and Mia, but I'm gonna have other people in the local
Sure.
area who have
Sure.
lost their pet to
Perfect.
do this hike with me, and so that's the way
Yes.
I'm growing the bond with them, and they're always gonna be with me through things like that, I believe.
Yes. And they inspired most likely the
Yeah,
trip walk or the podcast. That's their legacy.
yeah,
So there are not past tense. That's the legacy.
yes.
And
Definitely.
also when people hear this, journaling is just one expression. You might do something entirely different. You
Mm.
might have a special song or something, you know? So it completely depends. A friend of mine, she has a coffee table book.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just a beautiful coffee table book. I had a client, and I didn't know her, so she hired me, and she had also an ancient cat. And the cat was her grandmother's cat, and then the cat was handed over to the family. So she was, in the family when my client was a child. And at the time when she contacted me, she was a grown, right? And Gypsy also was in her 20s. Gypsy is the cat. And there were a whole bunch of ailments, and she wanted some guidance. And and it was very, 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 very close. And what I didn't know anything about what she did for a living. Knew nothing. I knew that she was an herbalist of sorts. She did something with herbs. It was a while ago. And then Gypsy gives me images, and I'm like, I don't know what this means, but I don't know what this means. And then Gypsy had instructions for her person. Instructions. This wasn't like, oh, think about me or anything like this. And the instructions were like to draw her and create some kind like the equivalent of a coffee table book, but not with photos, not too much text, but with drawings.
Mm.
And I don't know what this means,
Yeah.
And it was showing the book to children also,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Mm.
And I hear this person gasp, and and maybe some people think that's like a wacky thing, and I just am delivering the message.
Yeah.
Right? And I hear my client gasp, and she says, "Oh my gosh, do you know what I do for a living?" And I said, "You do something with you're an herbalist." And she said, "Yes, but I used to be a graphic designer."
Ah.
So, and this was like 2 nights before Gypsy passed, actually. And and then she started this amazing portrait pencil drawing. She had a photo of Gypsy. And then she sends me the photo and the pencil drawing, and it is just jaw-droppingly beautiful. So she instantly, connected with her inner artistry and created this drawing. I do not know whether it became a book, you know, but I do know that it struck a chord with her, and I had no idea that she had another career.
Mm.
I don't interview people about their careers, that's not why they hire me, right?
Right.
And so that was very specific. It was very, very specific. You know, Another cat that I worked with, an orange tabby girl, and orange tabby girls are much more rare than orange tabby boys.
Right. Yeah.
And so her person, I knew she was like, she wrote poetry, she was journaling, and she also did artwork. So I knew that in this case. But the cat said, okay, I would like velvet. So she wanted the texture of velvet. And I said, maybe you can get a cloth swab, like a velvet something cover for the cat bed. And she wanted little photos of wild cats. And when I say that, cats don't look at photos like you and I do, right? But there were very specific instructions before the cat passed away, also, where she wanted to energetically tune in with her wild cousins.
Mm.
And cats in the wild, they don't complain. They don't call their girlfriends or, I got a headache or it's getting really bad. And get me some pain medication. They get quiet, they might hunker down, they
Mm.
don't wanna jeopardize the safety of their group, to survive. And I went to my client's house, and the cat was, like, residing on a little throne with a velvet cover, and then all around, she had, like, printed out some lions and some cheetahs and some tigers, and that was a situation where she did some watercolor drawings also, you know? Um, and you never know what the rituals might be, and some might be very mundane, like put my favorite toy next to me or leave me alone or whatever. But who comes up with these ideas? I had none of my dogs requested velvet. you know, or please print out the photos of so and so. But I've had cats who had very regal requests.
Mm.
And, I couldn't make this up. I
Yeah.
couldn't make this up. No, I couldn't. I don't have velvet in I have a velvet couch because I wanted a velvet couch, but
Uh-huh.
because my cats requested. Okay. So,
I love that.
and
Yeah.
and God, when we can do that, like we would do it with a human who we know has a favorite rocking chair or a favorite
Mhm.
or whatever, or a favorite last meal or something like that. There is so much love and devotion and beauty in,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
and the sadness and the grief. It can all be at the same table, as I say.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Absolutely.
don't have to choose between one or the other,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
and for me, this is what I did. That wasn't an instruction that I received. Whoopi was a black cat. And I found an artist on Etsy and I should have worn this now, but you know, I have a little pendant, an acrylic pendant, like a raisin some of her black fur was um raisined in. That's probably
Mm.
totally wrong. But I wanted her to be visible. I wanted to wear it. This is something that I did. I wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so there are many things. And then I have some Bodhi and Moopy, they're buried in my backyard
Mm.
because that have little graves. And Marlowe was cremated because he never went outside. He would have
Mm.
called 911. Yeah,
Mm. Yeah, right.
there's something green. People, it's past, but I might survive
Yeah.
it. So, so There's so many things,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
time is really irrelevant. They're so close to me,
Mm. Yeah.
always,
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, appreciate that. Um, let's gain a deeper understanding about the way cats think and communicate. And I know this deeper understanding can strengthen the bond between cats and their owners. So hopefully making it easier to connect with them on a spiritual and emotional level. So Ute, I was going to ask you, what have you learned about the way cats think and perceive the world? And how can understanding this help us deepen our bond with our cats?
I got to chuckle about this. So I want to say cats are far advanced. Okay. And that
Yes.
is the way of, their bodies are designed a certain way, but I see them move with grace. And I say they are natural born meditators,
Mm. Mhm.
meaning they sleep a lot. So there is a lot of biological information about why they do what they do. But I wanna say everything an animal does, everything a cat does makes perfect sense to them. And I also wanna do a shout out to those people who have cats who are vocalizing a lot at
Mm.
night because they're in discomfort. We have that happen more at night.
Mm.
And what I have learned about the way cats think, and I wanna maybe illustrate that with a story, is that they understand the mystical nature of life much more readily. We have to do workshops or we have to do whatever, spiritual classes or practice certain things. And cats just have it down. Um, I want to give you one example. There are two that stand out. One is someone who also had a very old ornery cat. So, and he had a very young child. And, sometimes young children are like drunken sailors for animals and, or they're in their space and that's not like comfortable. And so the cat was old. He had some health issues, but he was ornery. So it was not easy, to give him any medication. Anybody who knows cats, medication doesn't always go well together.
Mm.
And so there was a little bit of friction, and also he was a young dad, so, and I totally understood that. I said, listen, I'm going to tell you something is probably really crazy, but you let me know. I won't charge you for this. You just let me know. I said, when you go home, look at him and tell him that that he is a regal creature and that he remembers his Egyptian lineage. This
Mm.
was a particular so this was not a planned session. We met at an event, and he shows me a photo of the cat, and he goes like, "Oh, la, 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 la." And then I asked him, "Do you want some input?" And I mentioned this, said, "When you go home, you know, show some reference and say, I know you remember your lineage. I know that you remember that cats were worshipped in Egypt and you were one of them." And I kid you not, the cat's entire demeanor changed. Yeah, I kid you not. Is that true for every cat? No. I don't want people to get these ideas, but showing reverence is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's not a bad
Yeah.
thing.
They'll love that. My new cats will love that if I try that on them.
Well, and just saying, I respect you.
Yeah.
No, I respect you. You might have a memory, that goes back many generations because I think there are communications that go across time and space,
Mm,
right? And I also think that some souls choose to come to us as cats
mm.
or as dogs, but we're talking about cats here to teach us something about love that if they came to us as another human, we wouldn't be receptive to.
Yeah.
And that to me is the sacredness of the connection that we have, really,
Mhm.
you know?
How did you learn to communicate? I know you communicate with more than just cats, but since we're
Right.
talking about cats here, how did you learn to communicate with cats?
Um, I didn't go to school to learn that.
There's not a PhD program? There's not a PhD program in
Yeah,
college,
the
huh?
Cat Academy.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Doctor
there are a lot of
trying.
classes about animal
Yeah.
communications, and I teach them too because people are often, we're just a little bit blocked, but it's all there. I learned it when one of my animals was dying in my home. People always told me I should do it. I still do it, but it's not on my website. I used to do psychic work with people. I used to do aura readings and chakra readings and all the things, and I'm still doing that if people ask me to. And people saw me with my animals and said, "Ute, you have this connection." And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about." And then when one of my dogs crossed over, my pit bull Shiva, and Shiva was a real cat worshiper. I mean, he met my cats and was like, "I love you, I worship you." And Mubi is like, "You better, otherwise I whack you." She was like this, right?
Mm,
He was like a big, big dude. And so I learned open or uncover this intuitive ability when my dog Shiva died and my cats were right by his side. They nursed him through that, and they were his doulas, both of the cats, because they both loved him because he was so, he was their disciple, if you will. And this experience of my dog passing and the cats being there, it just lifted the veil, and then I incorporated the animal communication part into my work. I used to do rehab for animals for, trauma, and I incorporated that into my work, and that's how it came into being, and then I learned that I knew it all along, and mind you, I had a lot of experience doing it with people. I just had a feeling, "Oh, with animals, it's different." It's not.
yeah.
It's just the challenge for a lot of us is to get out of our human projection and understand that they have different minds. They
Mm,
have different instincts than we have,
yeah.
right? And to really understand they're not humans. I want to really emphasize that. When we talk here, we are not humanizing them. They have a different template, but they certainly have a mind
Yeah.
and a soul and
Well,
emotions.
my current cats, they just turned 1, Nico and Milo, and I think it was Nico, he somehow started the washing machine.
Ah,
The door was open where the washing machine is, and he was walking around on it, and all of a sudden, I hear the water running. I'm like, "This guy just started the washing machine." It's like, "What the heck's going on here?" And I don't know if there's any meaning to that, but can people like myself, can we learn how to communicate with our cats? And if so, because I always wonder, like, gosh, what is that meow? What does that meow mean?
Yes.
Or, or their body language. So how could somebody like myself or viewers who own cats learn to communicate with their cats?
So there are many ways to do that. The first is create a practice for yourself where you can become quiet. It can be prayer, can be meditation, can be dance, can be walks in nature. It can be driving your car with rock music. I don't care what it is. But I think the first step is to connect with our own well of stillness. And the second step is to invite information and to ask for permission to connect. I wrote a bunch of essays about that. I teach classes about that. And that's not a sales pitch, but a lot of us are like, what?
Yeah.
How do I do this? And we are conditioned in our Western culture to push energy out.
Mm,
And for me, communicating with animals and receiving information is a very receptive process. And sometimes it takes not knowing what it means,
mhm.
but staying connected. And it's go like, that kind of energy. And animals go like, whoa,
Right.
won't. So it takes practicing stillness in any way that is appropriate, depending on your belief system,
Mhm.
and asking for permission.
So we're asking the cat for permission?
Oh, yeah.
What does that look like? We say it out loud?
You can, or you can think it.
Like,
I was just saying, may I?
"May I?" Okay.
Yeah. And then you feel the energy coming towards you or not. And then do you have questions? And a lot of us, when we ask questions, we expect an answer.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily how it goes. You might, depending on how you perceive things, some people feel things in their body, some people get words, others get images, others get colors. So see what is one of your primary channels of perception. When you read books about animal communication, it's all words, and I use words now also. But my channels of perception is I get words, I get images, I get body sensations because I work with sick animals and I feel it in my body. What is your way of perceiving?
Mhm.
Do you see with your hands when you touch them? Do you see it when you close your eyes? And if you hear words, they will be in your own voice in English. That's how our brains are wired.
Mm.
There won't be meows in your head,
Mm.
right? And then trust your intuition. And the advanced version is get out of your own way, meaning what are your emotional needs, desires, and expectations? And those are all things that can be studied in a more structured way
Okay.
to really trust your intuition.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, people think only a select few know how to do this. I have a lot of experience doing this, right?
Mhm.
But everybody has it in them. It's just covered up by a lot of noise, mental noise, expectations, ways of thinking, desperation for an outcome. And people, all of you who have animals who are ill, I don't blame you one bit. You
Yeah.
know, we get desperate when they get ill.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because I know sometimes, like, my friend has a cat who's, like, 15 or 16, and she'll feed it, play with it, do everything, and it's still meowing. It's just what do you what are you saying? We don't
Well,
know what it's saying.
often, you and I can
Mhm.
share. I can tell you, Scott, I really have a migraine or something, or I'm
Yes.
coming down with something. What can cats do? They can scratch, they can hide, they can eliminate, and they can vocalize. And I always say, when there is a persistent vocalizing, meaning it does not stop.
Mhm.
And they are in the demographic, it's not always when they're older. We have also
Sure.
young animals who get ill,
Yeah.
right? But when there is a meowing, 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 it doesn't ever stop. Most likely, there is some kind of discomfort or
Mm, mhm.
yeah.
And
So
cats are good at hiding that sometimes. Cats are good at hiding that.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, because out in the wild, if
Mhm.
you make a lot of noise when you don't feel good, you won't survive,
Right. Yeah.
right? Sometimes they might see, if they're indoors, they might see a cat outside and it's super stressful,
Yeah.
right? So there are many reasons for that, but usually there is a reason, and we need to do a little bit of detective work, right? And discomfort sometimes also shows before we have a diagnosis or a label or blood work or whatever we do, or,
Mhm.
ultrasound or x-rays and all of the high maintenance things that we often do at the end of
Sure.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, yeah, thank you. That's enlightening for me. I wanna wrap up with this, Ute. Your mission is to create more enlightened partnerships between humans and pets. What advice would you give to cat owners looking to build a more harmonious and spiritually connected relationship with their cats?
The first thing that comes to mind is look at their beauty
Mm,
and be grateful that you can share your life with these divine creatures that are so different. And so many cats are also misunderstood because they don't show facial expression the same way we do, or the same way dogs do, right? And more harmonious is to just get into connect with that space in you where you feel grace, where you feel beauty, and where you can feel genuine gratitude that these incredible beings decided to domesticate themselves to help us.
right, yeah. Oh gosh, they are beautiful. I'm glad I've been a cat dad for over 20 years now. They give
Yeah.
me a lot of joy. This was enlightening. Would you mind, Uta, sharing a little bit about um, where we can learn more about you, maybe your website or any resources that you have?
Yeah. So I have a website. It's pets point of view dash 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 dash.
Okay.
And if you have a chance, maybe you can put that in the comment section when it's on YouTube that people can click on it. That would be awesome. You can request a free discovery session with me where I talk about my work to you with you and you can ask me questions, right? I also teach classes. I have a class coming up. I have a free presentation coming up where you
Oh,
can yeah. September 7th I do a free thing. Um it's called The Wisdom of Animals, where you can join me and we talk about the spiritual and the other things that we share with animals. That's September 7th. It's also listed on my website and it's free. And then there's an animal communication class coming up on September 20th. And it's several evenings over a few weeks where people can study if they want to. But you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all of
all
these
the channels.
places, all of this. But my website is pets point of view
Yeah,
dash
with the
dash.
dash, yeah. I'll make sure to link up everything here in the comments on YouTube and in the show notes on the podcast. Uta, thank you so much. I want to acknowledge the work that you're doing. I mean, it's especially what really got me is the work you do as a pet death doula,
Mm.
just helping with that transition, which is very beautiful and meaningful for a lot of people. Thank you for the work you're doing to help pet owners and to help pets, cats, dogs, horses, every type of animal you work with. And I really want to thank you for your time here. This has been really enlightening for me. I've learned a lot. I know the viewer has, and just thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was wonderful to share
Awesome.
this with you. Thank you so much, Scott.
Awesome. You're
And
very welcome.
thank you for what you do also.
Sure.
It's
Thank
pretty
you.
important. Really.
Everybody watching and listening, thank you so much. And we'll see you on the next episode. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.